Emma Powell has resigned as the Democratic Alliance's spokesperson on international relations. So in the last 24 hours, she issued a statement saying that defending South Africa's constitutional values on the international stage has led to her being threatened, intimidated, harassed, and even illegally surveilled. Let's take this further. Professor of Political Science and International Relations, Director of CANRAD Centre at Nelson Mandela University, Bheki Mngomezulu. Good to have your time, Prof, on the SABC tonight. When you look at Emma Powell's resignation, it comes just a few days after a report, I think it was in the Sowetan, that said she had basically been named as an individual who, during some of these DA trips to Washington, was campaigning against the government's position or the national position during meetings there. Is that ultimately what you think has brought her down as the DA spokesperson on international relations? So by that I mean that she's leaving the post because she has to rather than wants to.
Thank you very much for having me, my brother, and good evening to your viewers. Yes, indeed, Powell's resignation raises eyebrows for a number of reasons. One, before the 2024 general election, it's now history that the DA went to the US to touch base with the Trump administration without any authorization from either the president of the country, Cyril Ramaphosa, or DECO Minister Ronald Lamola. That was wrong. And then soon after this coalition government had been put together, we've seen the ANC and the DA checkmating each other on issues of domestic policies and also in terms of international relations, more especially as it pertains South Africa's relations with the US. So then her resignation then should be understood in that context that this was long time coming. In fact, I think she has served the DA and served the ANC and the country well by resigning, because you cannot have a member of the legislature who is also a member of the executive and also someone who is always second guessing what the government is doing. It just doesn't stick.
The challenge, of course, with the trips to the United States by people like Emma Powell, the likes of AfriForum, Solidarity, etc., while they may be offensive to some, the reality is legally there's very little that prevents any sort of lobby group or person from going to the US and meeting with multiple people. I wonder, though, how well the government, or at least the ANC and others, have done in countering those messages that have been counterproductive or harmful, especially to the relationship between Pretoria and Washington.
You know, my brother, let us get our facts right. I like your question. Let us get our facts right. Our government currently is weak. I don't have to mince my words on that one. Our government is weak, and we have been saying that the ANC up to the 6th administration has been on consistent decline. We know that for a fact. But now with the 7th administration, the situation is even worse, simply because the two main parties in this 10-member coalition, that is the ANC and the DA, I've made this point before that they seem to be suffering from an identity crisis, not in an offensive way, but in the sense that the ANC would behave as though it is still the governing party, which is not the case. The DA would behave as though it is still the opposition party, which is not the case. You still have 8 other members of this coalition who are being looked down upon and who cannot run a coalition like that. So basically then what it means, therefore, is that if you had people outside of government negotiating or lobbying or doing whatever like your AfriForum and others, I could even pardon those. But I cannot pardon a member of the coalition basically stabbing the government from behind, because the DA is a member of the coalition who cannot then find them saying things that are contrary to what the government's position is. It's totally wrong.
And Helen Zille gave a recent interview where she was talking about how, for instance, that she finds it interesting, and I'm paraphrasing here, that the ANC sections of the Government of National Unity have taken such exception to these DA trips to Washington, including ultimately President Cyril Ramaphosa firing Deputy Minister Andrew Whitfield a few weeks ago. And in fact, Zille was making the argument that what should be happening is that the GNU government and the Ramaphosa administration should, in fact, be making use or taking advantage of what appear to be open channels to the DA in Washington to advance the South African position. Is that plausible? Does that argument make sense?
Maybe my brother, I would offer my services on that one. Just bring them here for 1 week, then I'll teach them how international relations operate. You cannot be a member of government and then you negotiate outside of government. The channels are clear. If you want to engage any other foreign country, you do that through your embassy. In this case, we used to have Ibrahim Rasool before he was axed. That was one avenue. The second avenue is that to use the Minister of DECO, in this case, Ronald Lamola. And then the third avenue is president to president, whereby President Ramaphosa will be conducting President Trump on issues of global importance. Those are the three levels at which you operate. You cannot then have a member of government, be it a government of national unity, as they call it, which I call a multi-party coalition, or be it any form of government. You cannot have an individual going to negotiate on behalf of government without any authorization from the president. That is exactly what led Whitfield in the hot soup, not necessarily because the president was being vindictive, but because he failed to comply with the regulations, some of which he signed, in fact, when he was sworn in as a deputy minister. You cannot then go to another country and claim to be representing government without necessarily getting authorization from your president, in this case, President Cyril Ramaphosa. So I think before people can argue about these matters, they must get their facts right and understand, one, how international relations operate, and then secondly, how coalition governments are maintained. I'm not saying that the president has done a good job, because I think he's also in a learning curve in terms of running a coalition government, which is why then some DA members feel that they can do whatever they want because they are members of the coalition. It doesn't work like that.
And then the other issue, just to circle back to Emma Powell, she did make, in a very long statement that she issued yesterday when she announced her resignation, a very alarming statement saying she had been threatened, harassed, and illegally surveilled, basically spied on. Should she not have to reveal the person or people who would have been responsible for that? Because ultimately, those are all very serious allegations if they are linked, especially to her work as the DA's now former international relations spokesperson. Does that burden fall on her to say who was doing all of this?
Indeed, the onus is on her, and not just to tell you and I, but to go to the police and report the matter. First of all, before even going to the police, there is protocol in Parliament as to what happens in cases like this when you feel that something untoward happened to you. There are processes. You can talk to a chief whip for starters, and then your chief whip will then know which channels to follow. There is a whippery in Parliament where all chief whips meet. Then if ever the issue is not resolved, you can always find a way through your leader, the leader of your party, to then touch base with the president of the country and then resolve the matter. Failing which, you then lay formal charges against those individuals who have been following you illegally, including our state security agencies, by the way. They also need authorization before they can spy on us. If they do that illegally, then it means they are also in the wrong. So in this case, Powell has all the right, as a South African citizen and as a member of Parliament, to then follow the right channels if ever she feels aggrieved and she feels that something that was not supposed to happen happened, then of course she has to take the necessary action. No one would blame her for that.
We're also still waiting on another issue, but still within the realm of relations between Pretoria and Washington, for Mcebisi Jonas, the president's special envoy, to make his way to the US. That has yet to happen. We haven't seen any official engagement that is public-facing at this stage. Do you think that's dead in the water, given that there were already reports of misgivings in the circles in Washington around his deployment in that capacity? Will he ever make it to Washington?
It depends on America. Every country has political sovereignty. When we visit in other countries, we apply for a visa. So then Mcebisi Jonas will just do the same, apply for a visa. If he gets it, well and good. If he doesn't, hard luck. And he will not be the first, and he would not be the last. You saw what happened recently with the EFF's leader, Julius Malema, where the UK refused him visa. And not so long ago, Blades Nzimande fell on the same situation whereby he wanted to go to Palestine, was not given a visa. The list goes on. So there are instances where you apply for a visa and you don't get it. If you do get it, it's fine. But the last issue that I need to highlight, my brother, here is that there are people who are confusing Mcebisi Jonas's position as President Ramaphosa's envoy and the position of being an ambassador. If you're an ambassador, once the president has appointed you, then you are given a letter, an official letter of introduction, then you take that to the foreign state. They call those credentials. In other words, meaning that you are not going there posing as an ambassador. You have been authorized to do that. But if you're an envoy, you don't follow the same route. So then if Mngomezulu, for example, wants to go to the US,
right,
representing the president as his envoy, then it will be a different process altogether.
If you can, in half a minute, 30 seconds, sir, I want to ask you about the tariffs by the Trump administration, 30% due to take effect on the 1st of August, so that would be this Friday. We've got a statement from the Trade Minister, Parks Dao, today saying South Africa is preparing for any eventuality, multiple scenarios at this stage. Are there likely to be political consequences for the GNU, in particular the president, perhaps, if indeed these levies kick in on Friday?
Absolutely. The DA will be the first one to blame the ANC for not having acted on time. That will be the first thing that is going to happen. Then as for other coalition partners, only one can guess what their reaction would be.
Bheki Mngomezulu, good to talk to you with the Canrad Center at the Nelson Mandela University in the Eastern Cape.